What is going on, my friends? For today's episode, we're taking a look at two fantastic Citizen watches that I absolutely love. So just like in the thumbnail and title, we're taking a look at the Citizen Tough and the Garrison. I picked these two watches because I felt like they satisfy a certain need that I think a lot of watch collectors obsess over, which is that never-ending journey for the one perfect watch. And I'll be perfectly clear, I don't think that such a watch exists, but I do think that there are thousands, or maybe not thousands, but there are a lot of watches that come very close. And I think the Tough and Garrison are two of those watches. And it goes without saying that, of course, these are just my personal opinions, but I think a lot of you will agree with me that any Citizen watch with an Eco Drive solar movement and sapphire crystal and scratch resistant case is going to be a fantastic choice for that one watch that can survive anything you throw at it. I want to be clear that this episode is not a versus episode. I'm not going to be competing the Tough to the Garrison. I'm showing both of them to show the viewers two different styles. Maybe the Tough might not be your thing, but the Garrison may very well be, and vice versa. Being completely transparent, this is going to be heavily biased towards the Citizen Tough. I have owned this watch much longer, and if I had to pick one, it would easily be the Tough if you competed against any other watch in my collection. But with that being said, the Garrison is no slouch itself and an excellent option with a little bit different style if that is your cup of tea. So without further ado, let's get right into it. For dimensions, they are essentially identical, so I'm just gonna put one set of numbers up here. For case diameter, we're looking at around 41 millimeters, just measuring the bezel area. The website says 42 for both of them, but I'm getting 41. So, I mean, we're splitting hairs here. If you include the crown, that goes up to 46 millimeters. For the height, we're looking at about 10 millimeters thick, a lug-to-lug of around 51 millimeters, and a 22 millimeter lug width. The mainstream watch community will tell you that any lug-to-lug over 50 millimeters is too much, but I think when you pair it with the beautiful thinness and the overall proportions of the rest of the watch, in this case, I think 51 millimeter lug-to-lug is acceptable. Now, the biggest difference in dimensions between the two of these watches is weight. The Citizen Tough comes in at 180 grams, and the Garrison comes in at a beautiful 85 grams. We have a very handsome looking dial here. It's not too cluttered, or actually not cluttered at all. Everything is clearly labeled. All the indices are bold, and the hands, I think, are just right. The day-date complication is also done very well. I think the proportions are just right to the overall size of the dial. And you can't really see it here because it's overshadowed just by my outdoor lighting, but of course we'll have some close-up shots where you can better see the day-date complication. I think the simple and elegant dial is complemented very well by the equally simple and equally elegant bezel. Of course, it's a non-functioning, non-rotating bezel, but that in and of itself supplies its own charm and own elegance. This clean bezel style is something that I'm starting to appreciate more and more, and the lack of any crazy design or anything is a statement in and of itself. Moving on to the side, we've got the crown. This is sort of my only complaint on the watch. So it's a good crown, it operates just fine, but it's a non-screw down crown. And you know, for the life of me, I don't know why any watch company would ever implement a crown that doesn't screw down. But again, that's just my preference. Is the lack of a screw down crown going to affect the overall wearing experience? Absolutely not. I can't imagine ever any instance where this crown would ever accidentally pop out. But for me, I just get that warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that my crown is a screw down crown. So, you know, hopefully in the future they implement Garrison, or an updated version of it with a screw down crown. Aside from that, the texturing is good. It pairs very well with the overall styling of the case, and aside from my personal preferences, there is absolutely nothing wrong with it. Looking at the case back, it is also just like the rest of the watch, beautifully simple and elegant. You've got that brushed finish, and for the intended use of this watch, I think it is just right. The bracelet is nothing to write home about, but with the style, I think aesthetically it pairs very good with the rest of the watch. For the adjustment, we've got a pin and collar adjustment system, so you know, a little bit more complex, but in my opinion that is the most reliable way to secure your watch links. For the clasp, we've got a fold over deployment clasp with stamped titanium. I would have liked to have seen something, I don't know, maybe more elegant, but you know, this does just fine. For the finishing, you've got a brushed finish throughout the entirety of the case. I like the color tone because it's not like a silver tone steel, but it's also not gunmetal. It's somewhere in the middle, so a very moderate color tone that I think is going to appease a very broad audience. I think the Citizen Garrison is definitely one of those watches that could very well be a one watch collection. Maybe not so much for the crazy obsessed watch addict like myself, but for the more practical and reasonably minded person, this is a great choice because you've got the sapphire crystal, you've got the titanium case material, and then you've also got the Duratec coating. And so what that all equates to is a watch that could literally handle anything from the rough and tough work of a mechanic or a service member or law enforcement, and then the subtle and elegant style will also fit well in a more delicate setting such as a dinner date, maybe even a ball, you know, going to a party. I think it will fit in any kind of environment that you throw it at. I gotta say though that the most beautiful thing about the watch is the weight. If you've never worn a watch that is less than 90 grams on your wrist, I'm telling you, you're missing out, because it's such a beautiful thing having a watch that is respectably sized but doesn't get in the way of anything. You know, you really can just have it on your wrist and forget about it, and it's there when you need it and not there when you don't need it. There's nothing worse than experiencing wrist fatigue, especially on a hot day, and it's just, you know, nagging at the back of your wrist all day long, and this watch definitely will not do that at all. Taking a look at the Citizen Tough, starting off with the dial. Personal preferences aside, everything is labeled clearly. From the minute, hour, and second hands, everything is very identifiable, so quick acquisition of time is an easy thing to do. The date window might be a little bit too small for most people. I think it's fine. I like the black dial with the contrasting white background of the date complication, so for me it's easy to see. On top of the dial, you've got a sapphire crystal, and then surrounding that crystal is the main case, and that's sort of the main star of the show here. It is a monocoque case. Monocoque meaning that there really aren't any different parts. So you've got the case and the crystal, and that's it. And so what this creates is this beautifully tough and resistant watch that really is incomparable to any other watch on the market. Another great thing about the case is it is coated in titanium, which makes it 5 times more scratch resistant than steel. And so with that scratch resistance of the case and the scratch resistance, or really scratch proofness of the crystal, you have a watch that not only looks great, but is a true beater watch. I often find that my beater watches end up being babied because, you know, it's hard to have a beater watch that you also care about. But in this case, you get a watch that looks good and you don't really have to care about it because it's just really tough. Looking at the crown, you've got a signed crown with the ProMaster logo here, and it is very well done. I would have preferred a neural textured crown, but how it is works fine, and it is very practical. It's easy to turn, so it is a screw down crown, which is another plus, and it's very easy to operate, and the threading is tight and well machined. Not much to see in the case back because there really isn't a case back. In this case, the case back is literally just the back of the main case, but it truly is a sight to behold. You know, it's the coolest thing ever, looking at this thing, knowing that your watch is just one solid piece of steel. Now for the bracelet, you're gonna be wondering what the hell is going on with my bracelet. So I actually purchased the Citizen Tough chronograph, and that is the bracelet that came on that watch. And I always felt like that bracelet would pair so good with this version of the Tough. And so I ended up swapping them out and then selling the chronograph and keeping this one. So in a way, I'm kind of cheating because even though this is my, one of my perfect watches, I had to modify it to get there. If you are in the market for one of these, this modification is one that I highly recommend. It makes me wonder if you're able to just contact Citizen directly and buy the Citizen Tough and then order the bracelet, sort of like as a repair part. If that is possible, that'd be a very cool thing to do, and you wouldn't have to buy two watches to do it. And for the finishing, it's beautifully done. And when I say beautiful, I don't mean like, it's a special design or anything. I mean, it is beautifully tough. You've got the brushed finishing throughout the entirety of the case, and there's absolutely nothing about it that you would need to worry about. You've got that warm fuzzy feeling knowing that it's got that titanium coating. So, even though it would look good with scratches, it'd be very hard to mark it up. And so it is a watch that you can put through the ringer and it will come back looking just fine. As expected with any Citizen, the lume is more than satisfactory. On the Citizen Tough, it's beautiful. You've got two different colors with like a chartreuse or teal and turquoise. And then on the Garrison, it's not as impressive, but it's there and it pleasantly glows for the majority of the night. So that about wraps up the review. Like I said before, the Citizen Tough is gonna be my choice, but the Garrison is also a fantastic option for those of you that are not feeling the Tough. I will say that this version of the Garrison is sort of new, so it's gonna be around for a while, but unfortunately the Citizen Tough is now discontinued. And I have no idea if they're ever planning on reissuing it or making a newer model. But as of now, whatever's in stock is all that's left. So I'm not trying to create some type of FOMO, but if you were planning on getting it, now is the time before supplies run dry. But other than that, all I can say is I highly recommend these watches, and in the ever-growing list of outstanding watches, you can confidently add these two into that list as you slowly fall into insanity trying to find the one perfect watch. So I hope you enjoyed this review or this episode. I always have a blast making them. If you guys stuck around for this long, make sure to tune into my various channels on social media. You've got Facebook, Discord, Instagram, and I also have my weekly live show, so you're more than welcome to join the family and tune into that. But other than that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, a great upcoming weekend, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.